Ask the Messengers, the program that deals with substance abuse, real people telling real stories. Where there is addiction, there is a chance for recovery. We're trying to help save lives on Ask the Messengers.
Jodi Switalski founded Switalski Law and Consulting LLC with almost 2 decades of legal experience under her belt. The firm serves Metro Detroit and specializes in family law, criminal defense, litigation, and advocacy. Their depth of expertise in substance abuse, opioid addiction, and mental health is what sets them apart from other law firms. Jodi is widely recognized as an authority in opioid addiction and prevention and substance abuse, mental health, and trauma. As a national expert, she speaks to medical professionals on prescribing and risk mitigation when it comes to controlled substances. She has copyrighted informed consent and prescribing systems that are in use around the country. As a keynote speaker, she has motivated professionals to take charge of our health crisis and the change that is needed to prevent further harm. Her lectures and presentations have been heard at some of the most recognized conferences and centers in the country. Today on the Ask the Messengers TV show, we are excited to have Jodi as part of the Ask the Messengers team. Today, we kick off our very informative series, Addiction 101, A Layman's Perspective, of which she will break down some of the situations related to substance use disorder, mental health, and the effects on the family in a way that is easily understood. Plus, real people share real stories. The Ask the Messengers TV show begins now. Okay. Well, Jodi, you know what? You have such an impressive resume. It's hard to say everything like in like a minute or two. I'm just so grateful that you are partnering with Ask the Messengers, and I'm excited to roll out this Addiction 101, the layman's perspective. Now that's your title, you guys. I didn't get that. I didn't make that up. That's Jodi. That's Jodi. So we're just going to break it down, from a legal perspective, from your experience. And let's just jump right into this. Like this word addiction. Let's help people really understand what does that term within itself, what does it really mean? How does it affect our families, our communities? And what are some of the simple solutions associated with all of that from your perspective?
Addiction in that early phase is often asymptomatic. That means you don't know you're in it.
Right.
Okay. Until when? Until you don't get it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the problem is no one tells you that headache, that migraine, that upset stomach, those flu-like symptoms, if you're more severe, right, are associated with the substances that you're putting in your body.
Right.
So it drives you into depression. It drives you into an illness. And what is the one thing that you know? If you take more, you'll feel better.
Yep. And then
So
you have to have it. You have to have it.
Right. You got to have it because what do you have to do? You have to go to work.
Yep.
Right. You've got to raise your family.
Yep.
You've got to function.
Mm-hmm.
And, we see this in professional athletes and, just all sorts of scenarios. I mean, think about Prince. I love Prince.
Me too.
Yes. I mean, still, I will argue that was the best Super Bowl halftime performance ever.
Oh boy,
a woman locked and loaded. Yeah, he was locked and loaded on legally prescribed substances, and he was performing exponentially. The NFL draft was last night. Brett Favre at one point was winning Super Bowls. So people really function because they don't know where they're at in this, okay? Right. And your body doesn't know. So, and with Addiction 101, there's physical components and there's mental components to it as well. And so it becomes very complex and we have to treat it. So let's move down just a little bit. I want you to know a little bit more about dependency because this is super important to everyone who's watching this because all of us at some point are going to get a legally prescribed drug. Okay. Right. And we know illicit drugs are bad. We know that cocaine and methamphetamine and all of that are almost immediately bad for your body. But when a doctor prescribes you a substance for that low back pain, for that depression, for that anxiety, I'm never going to say, don't take it, don't do it. You got to know what you're doing so you can monitor yourself and monitor your family and recognize when dependency starts to move into something unhealthy.
Yeah.
That's key to what we're doing today, right?
Yes, yes.
So physical dependency, my caffeine happens in as little as 2.5 to 5 days.
Yeah.
So you don't know what's happening. You feel bad when it's done. Mm-hmm. You start to take more. Mm-hmm. Your tolerance increases. So you have to take more, you have to take more, you have to take more. And now you're moving down that continuum, aren't you? Yeah. And so it gets better. It gets a lot better or worse, as the case may be, because do you know, Tina, what the last part of the body is to develop neurologically? All those neurons and stuff in our body. Do you know what the last part of it is?
In your brain?
In the brain, yes.
Wow.
And so the brain and size develops completely by age 2 to 4, 2 to 5, like that in size. Okay. That's why little toddlers fall all the time, because their head's too big for their body.
Right. That's what they used to always say. You're going to grow into that big head one day.
Exactly. My kid used to walk all the time.
Yep.
Huge noggin.
Got to grow into it. Yep.
All those neurons in the brain don't develop until age 23 to 25.
Right.
Yep. Have you ever had a conversation with someone in full-blown disease state?
Right.
Okay. Who is under the age of 25?
Oh yeah. Total denial. You can't, trust me, I deal with that.
Yes.
Yes. I have 5 children. So I've gone through the stages. My youngest twins are 22. And I go through one who was like, I know he was addicted to marijuana, but he's like, no, I just needed to cope. That's the aha moment right
ding,
there.
Ding, 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 ding.
Yep.
So the brain right here, the very last part of the brain is right here in the frontal lobe.
Yes.
So this part of your brain is the last part to develop. That is your judgment, your motivation, your decision-making. I like to call it the emergency brake. Okay. So it's all wonky and your neurons are all wonky. So they think they're thinking, okay. And we're listening to them going, what is going on here? Right. Not just adolescence, but a little bit more. It gets worse. Mm-hmm. The brain's lazy. So when you put substances in, especially like opioids and benzodiazepines, our painkiller medications, our depression, our anxiety meds and such, one of the big chemicals is called dopamine. Dopamine is a powerful chemical. It's affiliated with a lot of diseases. It makes us feel good, among any number of things. So the brain then, when you put it in, the brain says, oh, cool, I don't have to make as much anymore. So it stops or it reduces it. Right. Then when you take the medicines away or the illicit drugs that replace it, now all of a sudden you're operating at a deficit. That's when withdrawal comes in and your body doesn't feel good. So you have to stick more in. So there is so much to Addiction 101 that is really happening here. Yes. And I want you to understand that addiction is characterized, or substance use disorder has a lot of different components on it. And the biggest thing is that we've got to all accept that this is a disease.
Yes.
It is a disease like cancer, like heart disease, like diabetes. It is a mental health wellness disorder. It is not a choice. You and I could take the same substances and I could be perfectly fine and you could fall into the disease of addiction. It's all individual differences. You and I could be exposed to the same toxins. I get breast cancer. You don't get breast cancer, right?
Exactly. Yep.
And like any other disease, if you don't treat the disease, early identify the disease, right? Then the recovery process is much more difficult.
Right.
Like any other disease as well. If there's periods of relapse and recovery. My sister-in-law, died of metastatic breast cancer. She fought it for over 10 years. Okay. At one point she didn't treat her recovery and she relapsed. And so, the disease of addiction impacts us all. It's not someone else's family. It's very natural and neurobiological. And, there's a component to it. So just like she had cancer that she would have to treat for the rest of her life, with addiction, substance use disorder, you have to treat that for the rest of your life, or it's not going to go well. That's right. And, the other part in knocking out stigma, when I talk to doctors, I do a lot of training with doctors.
Wait. Hold that stigma. Yeah. Hold that stigma. We're gonna come back to that. Let's take a quick break. And we've been dealing with this month is mental health awareness, and we're dealing with a lot of suicides. So we have a young man who is going to just kind of like take us through the journey, who actually lost his brother. His brother jumped off the Belle Isle Bridge.
Okay.
Literally. And
sorry,
we don't know they don't know, it's like, how does someone get to that point of suicide? And we're going to get to that on another, when we come back. We're going to talk about trauma and mental health and how they all go together.
Stay tuned for more of Ask the Messengers.
I'm Wayne County Treasurer Eric Sabri, encouraging all taxpayers to please take advantage of the several payment options available.
You can pay online by visiting the Wayne County Treasurer's Office website. Paying online is easy and convenient.
You can also download the mobile app and pay with your smartphone.
You can pay at one of 70 kiosks located throughout Wayne County.
And yes, you can always still send in your payments using the U.S. Postal Service.
If you have to visit our office in person, you must make an appointment by going to treasurer.waynecounty.com. It only takes a few minutes. Facial covering or mask is required and social distancing is observed. Your health and safety is very important to us. You can also email our office at taxinfo@waynecounty.com or call us at 313-224-5990.
Hi, my name is Artesia Washington, and I'd like to welcome you to Irvine Neuro Rehab, where we help you reach your goals of rehabilitation. So you ask, why choose Irvine? Now here at Irvine, we offer physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech and language pathology, counseling, aquatic therapy, and massage therapy. And we help build you back to your previous level of functioning. Give us a call, 248-415-2500, www.irvineneurorehab.com.
Underage drinking is responsible for more than 4,300 deaths of youth annually. DWIHN, along with its provider partners, strive to educate young people on the deadly dangers of alcohol use and abuse. We teach youth about the dangers of drinking, especially when driving. If you are looking for resources to share with your loved one, give the Detroit Wayne Integrated Health Network a call, 24/7, 800-241-4949. Here to talk, here to help. More than 2.5 million Americans are addicted to opioids. The addiction is sometimes developed through the improper use of prescription painkillers. Using prescribed medication in ways or amounts not intended by a doctor is very dangerous. So it's important that unused prescriptions are properly disposed of. If you or someone you know is struggling with addiction, or for more information about prevention, treatment, and recovery services, or how to properly dispose of medication, contact the Detroit Wayne Integrated Health Network, 24/7, 800-241-4949. Here to talk, here to help.
The world is opening up, and when it opens, you want to be ready. Concerts, clubs, weddings, dinner with friends, or just hanging out. Soon, Detroit will be back, and you know how we do it. For 3 decades, Fashion International has been here when you needed to look your best, and that time is coming again. Check us out now. We have the latest styles to have you ready for the new normal. Fashion International, 10 Mile and Greenfield.
I want to talk today about manic depressive disorder and how it has affected my family. I am the youngest of 3 boys, and my oldest brother, Jackie, he had bipolar disorder, and he was diagnosed at about 17 years old. I think that was the first time my family was made aware of any type of mental illness with him. Thing with my brother, he was an artist. He was really good with his hands. He could paint, he could draw, he could sculpt, and he was a very popular tattoo artist in the city of Detroit, known as Rage. And he had shops all over, and he mentored everybody. He did tattoos, he did body piercings, he did massages. So we started seeing warning signs before he would go into these depressive states. Like I said, manic depressive, you go from one extreme to the other. We would start to see warning signs when he would just start working nonstop, constantly. He would throw tattoo parties, work 48 hours straight, no sleep, then come home and try to do some work, and then try to go back to the shop, to the point where his body would take sleep away from him. There were times where we would be standing and have a conversation, and he would literally fall asleep standing up, or fall asleep taking a drink, because he didn't sleep. He would just work until he couldn't anymore. And that would last for a few months. And then it would move to the other side of depression, where he just locked himself in the house, and he wouldn't answer phone calls. He wouldn't take visitors. He wouldn't clean up. It was just like the complete opposite of what had been going on months before. There were times where people would go over to his house, and my mom even would go over, and he wouldn't let her in. A lot of times I was the only person he would let in the house. It was hard watching him go through this back and forth. Sometimes a year or two would go by when he wouldn't have any issues with his mental. And then, all of a sudden we'd start seeing those signs again. In January of 2007, January 7, 2007, my brother took his life by jumping off the Belle Isle Bridge. And it seems like leading up to that, I saw changes in his characteristics that were never there before. Like, he started smoking clove cigarettes, whereas all his life he never smoked. And then he started drinking, and it wasn't like he was turning into an alcoholic or drinking an excessive amount. It's just the fact that he was drinking. I had never seen my brother drink anything until later in his life. And it was mostly beer. It wasn't hard liquor, but it was still something that was uncharacteristic of him. Mom said towards the end he was starting to hear voices, but he never admitted that to me. But I did see him starting to act out of character, where he was just, seemed like any little thing bothered him. He would get annoyed quickly. He's really quick to snap. If I could say something to someone to help them, I would just say, if your people are going through depression, which is a lot of people right now with this pandemic going on and being in quarantine, there's just so much going in the world where a lot of people are dealing with depression and dealing with anxiety. I myself deal with anxiety attacks. But I would just say, keep an eye on your family. Look for warning signs. Look for that manic activity that they go through, where they're just working or doing something nonstop, and then boom, they're secluding themselves and cutting themselves off from family, friends, and loved ones. Talk to your people. I think that's something we've gotten away from with technology. We're so used to texting and sending instant messages that we don't talk to our people. You can't see how a person is feeling through a phone or through a screen or through a computer. Reach out to your loved ones. Talk to your loved ones. Take care of your loved ones.
We'll be right back with more of Ask the Messengers.
If you or someone you know is battling with any type of cancer, you need to read the book by Laverne Moore Slaughter, God Encounters Are Real. In her book, she tells how through prayer and faith, God healed her and set her free from stomach cancer. For more information and to get your copy, visit www.encountersarereal.net.
I'm Wayne County Treasurer Eric Sabri, encouraging all taxpayers to please take advantage of the several payment options available. If you have to visit our office in person, you must make an appointment by going to treasurer.waynecounty.com. It only takes a few minutes. Facial covering or mask is required and social distancing is observed. You can also email our office at taxinfo@waynecounty.com or call us at 313-224-5990.
Underage drinking is responsible for more than 4,300 deaths of youth annually. DWIHN, along with its provider partners, strive to educate young people on the deadly dangers of alcohol use and abuse. We teach youth about the dangers of drinking, especially when driving. If you are looking for resources to share with your loved one, give the Detroit Wayne Integrated Health Network a call 24/7, 800-241-4949. Here to talk, here to help. More than 2.5 million Americans are addicted to opioids. The addiction is sometimes developed through the improper use of prescription painkillers. Using prescribed medication in ways or amounts not intended by a doctor is very dangerous. So it's important that unused prescriptions are properly disposed of. If you or someone you know is struggling with addiction, or for more information about prevention, treatment, and recovery services, or how to properly dispose of medication, contact the Detroit Wayne Integrated Health Network 24/7, 800-241-4949. Here to talk, here to help.
So we are back with Miss Jodi Switalski of Switalski Law, motivator, dynamic woman who really knows her stuff and has decades of experience, and she deals with this every single day. You know, there's a lot of terms that are used very loosely. We're going to put the word stigma, trauma, self-care, mental health. You know, we use all these words, sometimes in the same sentence. It depends on the situation. But from your experience and what you encounter on a daily basis, you know, what does stigma really mean? And how is trauma and mental health, how's all that packaged together?
Wow, that's a big question. You know, and I'm going to go back to the individual who was just talking about the loss of his brother, when it, you know, especially when it comes to trauma and how all of this works together. Stigma is a word of prejudice. Stigma is something that maliciously characterizes and puts people into a place that they can't get out of. Race is, you know, a form, the color of our skin is a form of prejudice and stigma. Calling someone an addict or a mental or a retard, you know, those sorts of words are all stigma-based labels, which help people, it decreases their self-esteem, among other things, and it exacerbates their mental health concerns, which, remember, we're looking at this from a disease model completely, okay? People can't help that there's different chemical levels in their brain that create things like depression. Right. And when you can't get treatment for those things, you start to engage in behaviors that create labels, stigma, put you in that hole that make it very, very hard to get out of. Right. In my profession, we see stigma, I see stigma every single day in the courtrooms, in law enforcement, in the prosecutor's offices, in other attorneys, in moms, dads, and parenting relationships, you know, and we have to really focus on educating those populations and empowering them. Now, when we talk, and before we were talking about like addiction and addiction 101 and how that moves down that continuum. And as we move down that continuum, we have to remember that trauma, like that young man that, you know, jumped off the Belle Isle Bridge, he undoubtedly had a mental health issue. He, you know, and when we look at all these catchphrases and terms that you were just talking about, one of those is wellness. We have a wellness epidemic in this country that's measured by overdoses, among one thing, and it's measured by now mental health rates and suicide rates, because substance abuse and mental health and violence, whether it is a workplace shooting, whether it is a domestic violence incident, whether it is taking your life or attempting to take your life, those things all go hand in hand. They're not in silos. And so we have to in our daily lives. Every single thing, Tina, is an opportunity. No matter what you do, if you work at the post office, if you have a radio show, if you are a lawyer or a judge or whomever you are, every single time you come into contact with someone who's suffering, it is not a burden. We've got to shift this stigma. We've got to shift this paradigm to think about what a tremendous opportunity to help that person find change and wellness and health. And that's how we start to knock down stigma, regardless of what the basis of that stigma is. So let's, I want to talk a little bit about trauma, if that's where we want to go, because I want people to understand what trauma is. And when we talk about substance abuse and mental health, there's a couple of factors. Remember all those neurobiological things? There's contributing factors, and there's a couple of big ones that I want your people listening to understand. The number one thing that every single one of us can do, okay, to stop the stigma or to combat all of this is age of first use.
Okay.
The longer we can keep our kids, our family members from using a substance, the better off they're going to be. All of our kids have a time when you can talk to them. First thing you say, I love you. Mm-hmm. I love you. And then you say, I am afraid. And you go through this. I am scared when you don't come home at night, that something bad is going to happen, whatever the case may be. Yeah. I love you. I am afraid. I am scared. I am concerned. I am angry. And then you start explaining your feelings, not because you did this and you did that and you made these decisions, but, bring it all back to them. And I would like to talk to you about this. Eye level. So there's not the power and control imbalance. Right. You give them that respect. Those are proven ways. Always lead with I love you.
Well, that concludes this week's episode of the Ask the Messengers TV show. We hope something you heard today helped you in some way to understand addiction and to give anyone struggling the desire to surrender and seek help. If you or someone you know is experiencing anything that seems to be too hard to handle, please know there is a way out and don't hesitate or be afraid to seek help. Thank you to our guests and the real people who shared their real stories. Until next time, may you seek a power greater than yourself so that you too can turn your mess into a message that will help save lives. Continue to stay safe and most importantly, be kind and love one another.
Won't you help us to do exactly what our motto is, and that is to help save lives? Won't you send a generous donation to the information there on the screen? We would love to have you as part of our partnership to help save lives. You may not be able to go out in the street, you may not be able to come here to the show, but you can send your donation that helps us save lives.